Hello, is this recording? Hey, it's recording. Okay. I think that's gonna be my thing now. I'm just gonna start off all the time by saying, hey, is this recording? This is Hybrid or Josh, you can call me either one. And this is another one of those videos where I have a topic and I just sit in front of the camera and talk about it. This one is about the sequel to the Man of Steel, which is coming out in 2016, which doesn't really have a title yet at this moment. But basically I'm talking about, is this Man of Steel sequel set up to fail, set up to be, doomed? There's been a lot of controversy about this film, a lot of very split opinions on this film, and it hasn't even started filming yet. So that's the most interesting thing, I think, is that it hasn't even started filming and everyone's already critiquing it to like its bare bones, its skeleton, as if it's already been out and like seen like 10 times. So I have a few bullets here, as you can see. I have a few bullets written down I'm gonna go over. Hopefully this video won't be too long, but I'll try keeping it interesting at the same time. And feel free, I know things regarding Superman and Batman tend to be very touchy with some people. I don't want to offend anybody here, but if you have a differing opinion, just comment below. We can have a discussion. Hopefully no one else will comment trying to be really offensive, because that's just being an asshole and we don't like those here. So first thing about the Man of Steel sequel is going to have to address the things from the first film. Now, one thing that Man of Steel really suffered from was rushing in terms of pace for a lot of the things in the film. Obviously, the biggest one that I noticed was the love interest, the love story that they were trying to put in there between Lois and Superman/Clark. That was so rushed. It was horrendously rushed. It wasn't even you couldn't even really buy into it. And stuff like Spider-Man, they have that romance built up in the first movie, and other movies that do that, at least they don't just shove it down your throat after the people meet each other once or twice. But this one they do, and it was very obvious, and it was very unattractive, I'd say, at least for me as a movie audience viewer. Just of how they I guess pulled that off in the movie. I felt like they could have done it much better. But also the destruction, they're gonna have to basically, a lot of people, most people that criticize Man of Steel, criticize it on how much destruction there was in Metropolis during the fight between Superman and Zod. So obviously they're gonna have to address that. Is this movie gonna take place right after, during a disaster relief effort from Metropolis where they're rebuilding still? Will this movie take place after they rebuild Metropolis? Those are things they have to address, which depending on how they do it, could kind of make it or break it, at least initially, for the film, because that's part of the world building of it. And also it's obviously part of the setting of the movie, and that kind of sets the tone as well, because if they're rebuilding, we can have a good tone of optimism and perseverance through struggle and adversary. But if it's already rebuilt, we could have kind of trying to maintain the status quo, strengthen the status quo, strengthen the city kind of thing tone instead. So it really, those things really dictate how the movie's going to be. Also, like I said before, Clark and Lois' relationship, that's going to have to be addressed in this one. Is it going to develop further? Are they going to officially be dating? Is he going to just, because they were going to blow full steam ahead with it in the first movie, so is he just going to jump the gun and rush into it and propose? Those are things that they're going to have to address in it, which have to technically follow off of the first film, as this is a sequel. And also there's other things too, like the fact that Clark now has a job at the Daily Planet, and Lois Lane yelled his name out, yelled Clark at him several times while he was in the Superman attire in public. So we're going to have to address things like this, and also the fact that a lot of people seem to know that Clark is Superman or has superpowers, or that he is different in that aspect, at least in Smallville. So they're going to have to address that in the film. I'm looking forward to seeing how they do that. The second thing I have bulleted down is this movie has no official title yet. If you've noticed, executives and spoiler people, they've called it Batman vs Superman, Batman Superman, Superman Batman, World's Finest. A few people have called it Trinity due to the whole Wonder Woman stuff, which I'll get to in a bit. This movie, and some people have called it Public Enemies due to the whole storyline in the comic book of Batman and Superman, their team up comic, where Lex Luthor is president, and they made an anime movie about it, so that's probably why it's so popular. But there's so many potential titles that DC hasn't even officially said one, and the most recent rumored title because I guess WB put up a not a copyright, but basically they requested a URL essentially for a website, which was Man of Steel Fight or Flight. Personally, I think that's a stupid name. I think if they just want to, it's not that hard. Luckily, Batman and Superman have done team ups so many times before in comics. Their team ups have names like World's Finest. So I don't understand why it's so hard for them to do that. Batman vs Superman, it's really eye-grabbing of a name because it's something versus something like Alien versus Predator. But the problem with that is that for a team-up movie, no one really wants to see Batman vs Superman because, no offense, that can't be the whole movie. And by naming it that, it makes it seem like the whole movie is going to be Batman versus Superman. Just like Alien versus Predator, that was its whole thing, and you see where I'm going with here. Third thing, there's a delay. Now, neat fact, a lot of people seem to forget, Man of Steel also had a delay of similar length too between production starting and when the movie was actually released. So I'm not too worried about this per se. A lot of it is rumored to be for post-production sake, like so they can do some effects a certain way and get it done really right. Also, there's rumors that it's some script stuff, like they're adding stuff to the script, which I'll get to when I talk about Wonder Woman and Batman's addition to the film. So all in all, delay, I don't think it's too bad, but at the same time, a lot of people will lose faith in this movie because DC, before Warner Brothers, I should say, beforehand, has announced stuff like a Justice League film and other movies and gave them not necessarily, they have given them release dates, but then they delayed them and they delayed them some more and then they canceled them. So it is a bit worrisome when, this project, as promising as a project, it's a pretty promising movie when you think about it. It's bound to get in a lot of money. So the fact that they're delaying it and things like that, it is kind of worrisome to some people. I don't think they're gonna cancel this movie just due to the fact that of how far it seems to be already in production, who they have in it, and the fact that DC seems really dedicated to catch up to Marvel in terms of having a cinematic universe for people to watch. Now, my following bullet after that is Batman and Superman being included into the film. Now, Batman, I felt didn't need to be in the film. I would have rather him not be, just because I really wanted a new Superman franchise of just Superman. But due to the circumstances of, Metropolis being destroyed quite a bit and the financial kind of ramifications of that being major, it would make sense for someone like Bruce Wayne, to invest in Metropolis. He's done that in comics. He owns a few buildings. I believe he owns the Daily Planet in the DC comics, at least pre-New 52. And I know he owned Clark Kent's apartment, so I'm pretty sure Clark Kent didn't have to pay any rent or anything like that. But Batman's inclusion in the film can be very organic just due to his alter ego as Bruce Wayne, and the fact that we have people like Lex Luthor, who I'll talk about in a bit there also. So I wasn't too upset about it. I do hope that, because they're bound to have a fight scene just to please the fans. I'm not going to be surprised if they have their fight scene. But I will be kind of upset if they make that the focus of the film, like I said earlier, because the focus shouldn't be Batman versus Superman. It should be them teaming up together as, like I said, the world's finest. The two greatest heroes in the world getting together, take on a common enemy. That's the coolest thing about their team-ups. And that's why their team-up comic, World's Finest, lasted so long. I have issue 1 of World's Finest. Came out decades ago. So, that just says how the longevity of their team-up and the possibilities of what they can do together. Now, Wonder Woman's inclusion in the film is an interesting topic. Now, when Gal Gadot was first casted, she was casted as only Wonder Woman, not Diana Prince or any other alter ego. So, the rumors of her doing a kind of fake alter ego like Talia did with Miranda Tate, I think that's very unlikely, just due to the fact that if they tried doing that, most likely they tried faking us out, because what's the point of us already knowing that into the movie? It would just kind of ruin the surprise of it, and we'd just be waiting the whole time for her to come out as Wonder Woman. Now, it came out later on that Gal Gadot is now going through combat training for the role of Wonder Woman. Not just, exercise, regimens, but actual combat training, as in choreography. So this makes me think that the response of Wonder Woman being in the film was so large and so, I guess major, essentially, that WB decided to increase her role from probably a cameo at the end to a role more akin to what Black Widow had in Iron Man 2. At least that's what I'm thinking here. Because for Gal Gadot to have to do choreography training, like combat training, and get used to using like weapons like swords, that would indicate she has a fight scene in the film. So that brings up a few possibilities to a few questions I have personally. Now, Wonder Woman's inclusion in the film, I think that's a little bit too much, because a character like Wonder Woman, you kind of have to explain. Unlike Batman, Batman's had tons of films already explaining who he is. The general audience knows Batman. But for Wonder Woman, there will be some questions posed there. Also, due to the fact that you have her backstory tied to the Greek gods, people are going to wonder about those. People are going to wonder, why she's here. Is she an ambassador from, Themyscira, like in the comics? Are we going to see Themyscira? Like, these are questions that are going to come up when Wonder Woman's in the film that they are going to kind of have to address. So there's that about Wonder Woman, which, can kind of make it or break in the film depending on how much they try putting her in there. And then we get to the most recent one, which is Lex Luthor. Now, Jesse Eisenberg is cast as Lex Luthor. Big surprise. He was never in any of the rumors. Like, we had Bryan Cranston, Mark Strong, the guy that played the main character in her, Joaquin Phoenix. I don't want to say his name because I feel like I'm going to mess it up. I think it's French in origin. But you obviously, most of you saw CJ's reaction to the casting, his response. Me personally, a lot of people were saying it's because of how he played Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network. I'd like to say that's wrong, mostly because Lex Luthor is a character that's been around for decades. Thus, he has various incarnations. CJ mentioned the one where Lex Luthor famously shown, or showcased more appropriately, in All-Star Superman, where basically Lex Luthor is the mental and like physical peak of human potential. He represents hard work and labor to get results and to get progression instead of genetic birthright. So basically, he is the prime example of nature being Superman versus nurture, which is Lex Luthor. Nurture being not genetically predestined to have powers. Like Lex Luthor worked his way to get it, and it seems like they're doing that in a different fashion in this movie. Rumors have it that Lex Luthor will be an ex-gang member, or maybe still a gang member. Basically, what they're going for is he's going to be a kid who was in poverty / lower middle class, younger in his life. At the age of 14, he was inducted into a gang. At the age of 15, I guess due to how smart he was, he ended up being the leader of the gang. And basically, he is a self-made man, and he's the youngest billionaire, I guess. At the age of 18, he was already, I guess, the richest person in the world. I guess richer than Bruce Wayne, and the CEO of LexCorp. So that's the rumor they're going with that. I don't know. Jesse Eisenberg, for me, he usually gets typecasted as a socially awkward character, and that's kind of a problem to a degree because Lex Luthor demands presence. I was really gunning for Mark Strong to play Lex Luthor for that reason, because Lex Luthor is evil, but he's just so persuasive, and he's just so dominant, and he's a leader and he's just so smart that basically, you can know he's evil, but still work with him. So that's the kind of, so I felt like Mark Strong can convey that, because whenever I hear Mark Strong, for some reason, I just think he's evil. It's just his voice. It's just, he has that voice for me, which is why he did so great at Sinestro, or one of the reasons. But anyways, moving on with Lex, basically Jesse Eisenberg, the real challenge for him is that every great villain has a monologue. Believe it or not, that's going to be a make it or break it for his portrayal of Lex Luthor, because I bet you like $100 that Lex Luthor is going to have a monologue in this movie. Somewhere, probably it's going to be about rebuilding Metropolis or the destruction that Superman caused in Metropolis, something along those lines. But he will have a monologue. And Jesse Eisenberg, it's not necessarily his voice, but it's just he's going to have to convey a presence in his monologue that's demanding and, direct, and at the same time, though, persuasive and calm. Like, he's gonna have to be very suave, essentially. He can't be the socially awkward nerd as Lex Luthor and is, in his acting of the role. And, people have said, he could be the pudgy Lex Luthor, but also, like I said, Lex Luthor has been around for a long time, been in various incarnations. We could have the Lex Luthor that's going to be a politician and go run for president. We could have the one that's a scientist, a mad scientist, that he's been that before. We could have a Lex Luthor that, it's just the businessman that he's commonly shown as in modern day society, the kind of corrupt businessman. But one thing I hope they have Lex Luthor do is not be one of the just straight up evil villains. He's not really a villain in a sense where, he just hates everybody. He just hates Superman and believes Superman is the worst thing for humanity. So I really hope they convey that with their Lex Luthor. I did that in my screenplay for Superman, but I hope they do that, because that's one thing about Lex Luthor, is that he's not evil per se. He's just doesn't like Superman and believes Superman is a limitation to humanity. Sorry, I don't know why I'm mumbling, kind of. So the last one I want to talk about, this video is going a bit longer than I really wanted it to, is the rumored appearances and casting in this film. Now, obviously, a lot of this can go, down the trash, because no one predicted Jesse Eisenberg, and he was casted. So, and that's not a, just call the phone, you're casted deal. You probably have to audition for that role, and, so that probably took a while. So while all these rumors of, Mark Strong and, Bryan Cranston was going around, Jesse Eisenberg was doing it. So things like The Rock being Jon Stewart, I don't really believe. I still am going to say I believe The Rock should play Lobo, just due to his character in WWE is practically Lobo. That oozes so much charisma. It's ridiculous. But anyways, I don't think they need any more, I don't think they need Green Lantern, The Flash. I don't think they need any more heroes in this film to take away screen time from who should be the main character above everyone else, which is Superman. Superman should be the focus of this film. Superman and probably Lex Luthor should be the focus of this film. And I hope they don't have any more big names like Green Lantern into the film, especially tied to actors like The Rock, because that means that they're probably going to give them a substantial amount of screen time so they can put them on the posters, and so they can do, press stuff for the movie to get up hype, and etc., etc. So that's about it for the film. Do I think personally Warner Brothers DC is trying to sabotage the film, doom their film, make it fail? No, I don't. Mostly because this is a big investment for them already. So there's really no going back here. It's also a big investment for the actors like Ben Affleck. He really can't risk another failure in a film, especially in the superhero genre. And also, the character of Batman is so big now. And this movie is going to get so big. It's going to make so much money. It's going to have so much attention to it. None of these actors can risk making a mistake in this film. They can't risk it being a flop. That's what I'm saying here. So it's a very critical film from all points of view. It's critical to DC's cinematic universe. It's critical to basically everything DC Comics that we're going to be seeing in films for the next few years. So all in all, this is hybrid. I wish DC and Warner Brothers the best. I just wanted to get a good movie. So I'll see you guys later.